you can't expect, and to some extent, it's unreasonable for someone to care as much as the business as you, the owner who has something invested, who has a stake in it. Now, should they absolutely care about what they're responsible for, right? And should they take pride and ownership in their tasks and responsibilities? Of course.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today we have a giant coming to you. His name is Tony Zaccario. He is the CEO of a national fitness franchise, Stretch Zone. And today we're going to be talking about leadership and the importance of systems. And I know that I can speak firsthand because I'm about 2 weeks post-op on a open heart surgery that came up suddenly. And so I had to get my club, my studio prepared to run without me because it's going to be a month or more before I can get in there. So having built the team and the systems and the processes and the KPIs so that I can still continue to monitor and run the club remotely without physically being there. So leadership and systems are important, and there's nobody better to talk to that about than somebody who is running a successful fitness franchise. They now have 149 locations in the United States. So Tony, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Jim. And you look great for open heart surgery. I'll tell you that much.
That's what everybody says, man. But I feel weak as a kitten, and like going up the stairs feels like a 5K, you know. But somebody explained it to me perfectly. It's like your heart's a muscle, right? So it's got to recover. Right now, it's pretty weak. So it's been a unique experience all around. But I'm a big believer in that. It is what you make it. It's nothing's good or bad, but thinking is what makes it so. So I always try to see the silver lining in everything. And for me, the silver lining in this was kind of not taking my health and fitness for granted, but also getting a firm grasp on my business where it was weak, where it was strong, where I needed to improve. How could I run it remotely without physically being there? Mm-hmm. And I think in the long run, it's going to be positive for me. So let's jump into Stretch Zone. How long can you walk the listeners through maybe your history, your background with Stretch Zone?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of background so people can apply maybe some of the tricks and trades and gives it more context. So Stretch Zone itself was founded back in 1999 by our founder, Jordan Gold, who's the one who created the patented strapping system and the Stretch Zone methodology that are utilized in all 149 locations to date. Really started with his grandfather. And, you know, kind of like what you're touching on is, you know, in moments like you're going through, I think you realize the fragility of the human body, and also how taking the necessary preventative steps can make a huge impact on your life in general. And so the product that exists today really came from a soulful place when Jordan was trying to work with his grandfather and spend more time with him. And that's when he kind of realized a different way and kind of created the Stretch Zone methodology that exists today. In a large part had to do with the strapping system that we utilize, which acts as an extra pair of hands. And with that, we're able to really kind of stretch anyone from, you know, obviously aspiring collegiate athletes to people that maybe just want to, you know, make it up the stairs a little bit easier or sleep through the night without any lower back pain or sciatica pain. And I think the beautiful thing about stretching, what we found is, you know, stretching is for everyone. And I think there's this misconception when people first come on is, you know, hey, it's great for those who are active, great for those that are athletes, but which is yes, but also yes, it's good for those that are deconditioned, those that aren't as active. Because really gets them moving again. And that's why we always try to define ourselves. And I think one of the hardest things is, you know, since we were the pioneers of the stretching industry as a whole, and really the first ones to do a retail model, anything of that nature, is a lot of people wanted to just call it just fitness, and that was it, and that was the niche. And yes, it does apply there, but really it's a lifestyle play. And so over the years, you know, we decided that, hey, the best way to reach the masses was to open up storefronts. And so we opened up first storefront back in 2016. I came on board personally around store 5. and help really design the business and create the business model around the stretch. Jordan had dedicated his life to creating a robust and comprehensive service that is the stretch home method, which is our biggest differentiator. And then when I came on board, this is, God, I guess almost 6 years ago now, we started realizing that, hey, there's a proof of concept from the retail model where people come in, they lay on a table, we do all the work, they get all the benefits, and then they work on a membership-based model. Then we realized that, hey, a more effective way is through the franchising route, and it is a scalable model, which made it very easy to franchise. Plus, with the proprietary, the patent, and obviously the IP involved with the business itself, made it very appealing to a lot of different franchisees. And so that's when people started asking us, hey, can we open up our own location? This was in 2017. So today, since franchising in 2017, just over 4 years, we have 149 locations, not a single store failure, opening about 2 to 3 stores a week currently. So growth is substantial. But really where we are today and where I am, the seat that I'm sitting in, is I'm actually really excited for this conversation, is to help others. And that's really what we're looking to do through all of our franchisees is, the service was found really from a true organic place of just Jordan wanted to help his grandfather. And we hope that resonates through our franchisees and to the clients and communities that they work with. And so right now it's about finding good people to do good business with and really making sure that we're picking the right franchisees that share our culture and share our core values as we expand across the nation and into the international market.
Yeah, I like it. And the thing I like about stretch zone, stretching is like warming up. When you're young, you're like, I don't need to warm up. I don't need to stretch. But as you get older and you start to develop injuries, then it becomes critical for injury prevention, for maintaining and increasing mobility, range of motion, things like that. So I don't underplay the value of stretching. But talk to us a little bit about what kind of leadership and what kind of systems you guys had to put into place so where it becomes kind of a turnkey operation for anybody who wants to buy into the franchise.
Yeah, it's a great question. And to your first point about stretching as a whole, how it resonates with the consumer, it's, I always boil down to this. There's 2 types of people that walk in the door at Stretch Zone. Those that appreciate what we're doing as far as the stretching modalities, someone like yourself who stretches often by themselves will realize that, hey, with these straps and with someone doing it for me in the practitioner assisted model and using his methodology, this is an insanely good stretch. And that's actually surprisingly a minority of the populace that walks in. Then there's the other populace that have never stretched a day in their life. And they come in, they realize, oh my God, the impact that stretching can have in their life. And it gives them the ability to do so much more. So that was the first point. And the second point is how you scale in the leadership component. I think it's, in franchising, there's 2 different levels to it. And when we first started, the first level is what you should focus on, in my opinion, trying to develop a long-lasting brand, which is the unit level economics of the business. And so that is the original business model because the only way for franchising to work is you as a franchisee have got to be successful. And really it's a mutually beneficial relationship in the sense of primarily we're successful and you're successful franchisee, and also you're successful and the brand is successful. But again, first and foremost, brand can't be successful if you're not finding success at the local level. And so when we first started, it's figuring out, okay, and really from a trial and error method of, hey, this is the best way to sell the service, this is the best way to package it, this is the best way to price it. Okay, now how do we create standard operating procedures around that in a way of, and what I'm a big believer in is you always have to create systems and processes with no individual, not relying on any individual. And I think from a lot of leaders' perspectives, sometimes it's a hard ego pill to swallow, but a perfectly designed system or perfectly designed organization is not relying on any one individual. And the reason why I say it's a hard pill to swallow is, then yes, you as the individual are that less important to the organization. But that means that you as a leader did a good job of designing the operations and the procedures around it so that's not relying on someone. And so I think you have to have that mindset first when you're creating the unit level, to where, hey, is this trainable to someone else? Can someone else find the same success that I would have if I ran my own store? Then after that, it's the scalability of the franchise system. So it's almost a business within the business, because as a franchisor, what we're selling is really an effective business model that utilizes patent tracking system, intellectual property, and all these other components in the service that you're going to sell as a franchisee. But for us as a franchisor, our direct client is in fact the franchisee. It's not the client that's getting stretched, which is kind of a twist in of itself, because we're always big on franchise first, meaning how do we provide necessary support? How do we provide the necessary training? All these other different components, and so from a broad leadership perspective, when you're structuring an organization, whether it's at a unit level or above, it's I'm big on a decentralized form of leadership. You got to give the other leaders within your team the autonomy to make decisions, and more importantly, you have to give them the freedom and the space to fail at making those decisions. And that way, nobody is ever dependent on one individual, because they learn using the right intent, being franchisee first or client first, whichever realm you're in or which business you're in, is you then learn how to digest information in a given scenario to make the best possible decision for the best possible outcome. So I know that was a very broad stroke answer to your question.
Those are always the worst questions. Hey, doc, this hurts. You know what that means? And they're like, yeah, dude, we're going to have to run some tests and take some x-rays and all kinds of stuff to get down to specifics. But I like what you said about an effective organization is something that's not dependent on one person, because I started this show for trainers who are good trainers, but not necessarily great business people, and they want to become better at the business aspect, because they go into business thinking like trainers. And if you continue to think like trainers in your business, then you will no longer be training eventually. And nothing showed us that more than COVID. So as Warren Buffett says, you don't know who's swimming without a suit until the tide goes out. And there was a lot of people skinny dipping. Yeah. So, but a lot of people, and like when you said the ego concept, they become the bottleneck in their own business.
Yeah.
Because they think nobody can do it as good as me. Nobody cares as much as I do. Nobody understands the nuances as much as I do. And for me, that is a weakness of leadership, because my business coach always says, good leaders create other good leaders.
For sure.
And like you said, empowering people. And one of the ways that you can do that is through systems. I know a lot of people, when they first get into the fitness business, they don't understand systems. They don't understand marketing. They don't understand a sales funnel. They don't understand a lot of the processes necessary behind the scenes to make the business really grow. So in your experience, when you get new franchisees, what systems do they have the most trouble with?
Because we boiled it down, and the one of the biggest points of leverage in our business model is very simple. It's 1,000 square feet, empty shell, low capital required to get them up and running, which is why we're very appealing to investors now, with a quick return, ideally. And I think that the hardest thing for franchisees is not the actual tangible process and procedures, meaning ordering furniture. I think it's people, and it's staff, and dealing with personnel, and because like you're talking about, and your business coach is spot on. I'm a big believer, leaders create leaders. And for some of our franchisees, it's their first time managing a team, and then managing a sales professional. And then how they do that, and then couple that with maybe it's a franchisee, and this is where you have to be empathetic to the franchisee, is maybe for that franchisee, it's not low capital. Maybe this is a hefty investment for them, and they're putting a lot on the line, which makes it harder for them to trust someone and empower someone in making decisions. So I think that's probably the hardest part, not only just for our franchisees, but just for business owners in general that I've observed.
Yeah, I agree. Managing people is like it's like being a parent. It never ends. The job never ends, and you never do it quite right. You never just quite nail it, right? There's always going to be complaints. But somebody also told me that it's also like training, guiding a horse. It's just that constant, gentle push in the right direction. Because I know for me, when I hired my first employee, which was another trainer, I said, okay, this is the way I train. Now go train. And then I would turn around and he would be like, I'm like, no, that's not the way I want you to do it. But I hadn't given him anything to understand that. I hadn't given him any kind of checklist, any kind of process, or anything like that. And then even when I did that, I was always quick to snatch it back instead of taking the time to train them to it. Do you find that to be true with some of your franchisees?
Yeah, I think at the small business level in general, yeah, I mean, it's always, it's a fine line. I literally just got to have a meeting with the director of ops and kind of our ops team. And we were talking about, we have an owners meeting coming up, and we're always doing our best to advise and support the franchisees. And on the top is micromanagement. And I think people confuse what micromanagement actually means. And some people think of it as, oh, if I'm setting expectations and holding you accountable for them, that's micromanagement. And in fact, it is not. So some people, it's like both ends of the spectrum. Some people want to do every task for them, and they don't give someone an opportunity to succeed and or fail. Or some people think that they can just say, hey, Jim, go figure it out without any guardrails or any guidelines whatsoever. And then the chance of failure is also pretty high. So I think it boils down to a larger conversation of the culture that you have within your team that you create, which is big for us. And so I said, and what I meant earlier when I said, you got to establish the why behind what you're doing and the why behind a certain protocol, because in training or anything else, no individual is the same. No situation that presents itself is exactly the same. And guess what, Jim, you can't be everywhere. I know I can't be everywhere. And so I need my team and my leaders to understand the why behind everything and the intent that I want to go ahead and roll out, which again, it is the onus of you as a leader to provide the vision and the intention of where we want to go and how we want to do it. But you need to give them the freedom to execute it. And, you said something which is pretty powerful, maybe a hot take, but it's, when people first start a business, obviously, if you're the one who created it, like when I spent the first 6 months inside of the store to help create the business model and everything around it and prove what's effective. It's understanding that nobody's going to really be able to quite do it your way. And also, if someone can do it better because you provide the tools necessary, good. And so like, that's great because it's a win-win for everyone. And I think there's a lot of people, and I've seen it over time within the organization, different employees and staff, where they came and they grew up organically to the company, and someone that they've trained can actually do it better. And they think that's a knock against them. And if anything, it's no, that's A+ for you. And then the couple that is, where the hot take comes in is, expecting people to care as much as you do. And it's funny, I was talking to a team the other week, and I said, guys, you'll never have people that care as much as you do. Nor should they, right? It's not their department. It's not their company. It's not whatever it is at a certain level. And so I think for people that are listening that are just starting their training company, whatever it is, gym, fitness studio, anything, or opening up a stretch zone franchise, you can't expect, and to some extent, it's unreasonable for someone to care as much as the business as you, the owner who has something invested, who has a stake in it. Now, should they absolutely care about what they're responsible for, right? And should they take pride and ownership in their tasks and responsibilities? Of course. But I think there's this misnomer where business owners especially, is they think that someone's going to care as much as you do. And it's just unreasonable, is my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. Nobody's going to care as much as you do because you created it. It's your baby, right? It's like nobody cares about your kids the way you do, So yeah, I agree with you 100%. And if you can find somebody who can do it better than you, That's what you want, right? Like when you hire somebody for marketing, you want them to know more about marketing than you do. That's why you hire them, because they can do it better than you, because obviously you need help. And I like what you said about getting people to buy in, because I believe it, regardless of what business you're in, you're always selling.
Yeah.
That ABC, always be closing. When I first started out as a trainer, every time I trained a client, I was selling, right? And then now that I have a team, I have to sell the team on my vision. I have to make my vision sound really appealing to them so they can buy into it and hop on board. And then also what you said about, and I really like this, is giving them what they need to succeed in the position so that they're happy and feel competent and successful in that position, and you feel the same about them in that position. Because a lot of times when I was up and coming and working on my leadership skills, and I still am, I would say, like you said, that, throw them right into the fire, go figure it out, and then criticize them when they didn't figure it out. Well, nobody's going to be happy in that situation. I'm not going to be happy with them in it, and they're not going to be happy being in that situation. So I need to realize that I need to give them the tools, and who better to ask what they need than the person you're giving the job to. And also I realize that, promoting from within isn't always the right answer, because I've had trainers and I'm like, oh, I need a manager. So I promote them to the manager, and they don't have any managerial skills. So I need to have that conversation with them, and I need to let them know that, hey, look, you need to bring up your skill set if you're going to be successful in this position, and give them what they need to be successful. Do you agree with all of that?
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, then there's even the larger conversation where you got to understand every player on your team, and you touch on it with, like, when you're trying to translate your vision. Big believer with higher purpose comes higher performance, which is proven. If people understand the purpose and the why of what they're doing and why they're doing it, they're going to care a lot more and take more pride and ownership in it. Then couple that with, like for the trainer that wants to be a manager, and his work gets dangerous with promoting from within, is not dangerous, but gets challenging, I would say, is you have to have a real conversation with that person of, hey, what is it that they're looking for? Are they actually wanting a managerial position? Meaning, like, is that what's going to make them happy? And I think the biggest challenge that I've learned when growing this at scale is people confuse professional success with happiness. And people think, and everyone wants to be, and intuitively, and kind of the way we're programmed, is everyone thinks that when they're number one, whether it's in their team, their department, the company, whatever, that, oh, once I get another step up, I'm going to be happier. I'm going to be happier here. I'm going to be happier here. When in fact, they actually might be happiest being a number 8 in an organization. 20% less. And they might be more effective and impactful for the organization. And so, I know it's a little bit of a side road from where you're going, but that's one big thing. And the other piece is, you're talking about, being aware of what you don't know. And I'm a big believer is self-awareness is huge. You're not expected to know everything. And so for anyone starting a business, it's ignorant to think that you are going to know everything, and that you should. And so I think, and that goes way back to the ego, and swallowing the ego pill of, hey, listen, the business can't be all about you. It can't be because you're so great and you're so successful at what you do. It's got to be scalable if you want to grow. And so with that being said, it takes a lot of self-awareness to know where your weaknesses are, and it takes self-awareness to know that, hey, maybe I am the bottleneck in this process, or maybe I am the bottleneck in the system. But I think it's hard for a lot of people to look in the mirror and really be honest with themselves.
I agree, but I agree with you 100%. I think it is one of the hardest things, but I think it's essential if you want to be an effective leader, create other leaders, and create a superstar team, and have the ability to allow the team members to shine on their own, to become superstars without it bruising your ego.
Yeah.
But that takes a tremendous amount of self-awareness, self-reflection, work, all of those things. I think that's essential if you're going to become a better leader, for sure. As far as like systems,
Mhm.
where do you see your franchisees, your new franchisees, struggle the most, or have the biggest gap in knowledge? Like you said, we don't know what we don't know. And
Yeah.
so what system do you see where that dissidence is the biggest?
Um, honestly, and obviously I'm biased when I say this, from a systems and processes place, we're in a really great spot. That's the only way we're opening 3 stores a week currently. Um, I think just systemically that I see with franchisees in general is that maybe they don't ask for help as soon as they probably should be,
Mhm.
which ties back into kind of everything we're talking about, to where it's, I don't need help, I don't need help. And, when it's probably a little bit too late, meaning that there's something that could have been solved 3 months ago, if you would just raise your, rung the bell and said, hey, go ahead and assist me. And hey, that's, it's our pleasure. We're here to support you, the franchisee. So I think systemically there's not much as far as, hey, there's a struggle with it. Because we boiled it down to really it's a turnkey operation.
Yeah, I agree. I think this industry, and I don't know if it's unique to this industry, but I've just been in this industry my whole life, and I know there's a lot of egos in it. And I know it's the one industry where we're expected to be coaches for our clients, but we don't get coaches for ourselves.
Yeah.
And nobody gets to the top alone. So if you have a weakness in your game, then you need to hire a coach, whether that be in business. I highly recommend hiring a business coach or joining a legit mastermind. The problem is finding just that, a legit mastermind. But
Or the
I,
mentor that I
yeah,
mean, it's someone that's done it, that can even just be a sound wall where you can bounce stuff off of. Because for me, and you're right, there are a bunch of egos out there, and I think also in this, and whenever I try to mentor people, or people come and say, hey, I want to start a friends, family, whoever, or people that were connected with me about saying, hey, I want to start my own business. My biggest question is, well, what's your intention? What's your goal? What are you trying to get out of it? And this goes back to the self-awareness thing of using professional success for happiness. And they'll say, everyone that opens up a gym, which I'm sure you've heard it or anything like this, is I want to have 1,000 gyms. I want to have 100 gyms and dominate the state. And it's like,
I want to be a household name.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, but you take a step back. And by the way, I had these conversations with franchisees. You have franchisees that come on board and say, I want 20 franchises. And really, because the culture we have here is more so, no, we want to do what's right for the brand, right by you, which is why we have no failures, because we're doing it in a pragmatic way. It's kind of the conversation with franchisees, like, yeah, I'm sure that sounds good, but have you thought it through? Like, does being a household name for a new gym or having 50 franchise locations, is that really what you want? Or does that just sound nice? And then you find that people are saying, that's why we say, listen, just start with what you're comfortable with. But I think that's the biggest misnomer, where people come on board and they have no clue that, hey, maybe I just want to run 2 gyms and I'm going to start up and I'm maybe going to work 20 hours out of the week. I'm going to make a good, comfortable living. And maybe that's a much better lifestyle, and probably is, than the person that's going to try to push themselves to go to 20. But they want to go to 20 because they think that's what they're supposed to do. And that's what, they always thought they should do,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Because you just described myself when I first opened my gym. Oh, I'm going to have, 5 locations in a year. But the problem is that I didn't have my shit together, right? I didn't have the systems. I wasn't the leader that I needed to be. I didn't have the organization in place, the team in place that I needed. But the thing that I quickly realized is that whether you have 1 location or 20 locations, the issues are the same. It's just a matter of, do you want to deal with that 20 of those situations or 1 of those situations? What are you built for? And buddy of mine, Frank Nash, and I say it all the time, is like, just because you're a trainer doesn't mean you eventually have to transition into ownership. sometimes you're just happy you're being a trainer.
And my thing is that there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
And that's why I think it is societal pressures. But I think when I say we're programmed that way, it's because, hey, listen, everyone wants to be number one. That's the whole thought. But if you're happy, and this is a running joke, it's like, listen, if you're happy being number 10 in an organization, making whatever 60K a year, 70K a year, but you have great work-life balance and all these other components, good on you. Like if you're saying, hey, that's what makes me happy, great. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so no, I mean it's just there's so much you have to think about at scale too. And the problems only, they grow at exponential rates when you scale. And I think the biggest challenge that I know that we've had to overcome at Stretch Zone is, listen, we're growing like crazy. We're going to be over 200 stores by next spring, pretty much, growing 3 stores a week. And so it's really unheard of growth. And with that, this is where it gets really tricky is me as a leader, and this is where you have to be very mindful. And this is why mentors are great or accountability like a board or something of that nature at our size, but also department heads and boiling it down to the micro level, or if you're a franchisee growing quick, is you have to evolve at light speed rate, meaning systems and processes. And for those that are opening up their first gym, right, or their second one, you getting advice on what systems and processes implemented at a 100-store gym brand, it's not going to apply. And so the reason I'm saying that is because there's a challenge in a growing franchise and hyper growth like Stretch Zone, where it's saying, hey, what you're doing at store 150 and the systems and processes you have are effective at 150, but they're not going to work at 200. Oh, and by the way, the systems and processes at 200, it's too immature to introduce at 150. Now, the difference is a normal franchise bridges that gap of the 50 stores maybe over 2-3 years. We're going to be doing that in approximately 4 or 5 months. Oh, wow. And so with that, you as a team, and it's hard. I mean, as human beings, it's hard you have to change your mindset constantly and recognize that, hey, just because it worked then doesn't necessarily mean that it works now. And that's even at the micro level with gyms, I'm sure, as you know, where, hey, what works from store 1 to 3 or gyms 1 to 3 does not apply at store 8 to 10. It doesn't mean that you have to implement in store 8 to 10. It means that, hey, you got to be recognized and be aware of it as you grow.
Yeah, I like that. And good friend of mine, Billy Hofacker, who always says grow at the rate of cash, which I really like. But to your point, yeah, it's about an evolution, because if you have one location, what works on that one location won't work for 3, and vice versa. Or if you're, at 150 locations, it won't work at 200. So you have to have that foresight. You have to have that humility, and you have to ask for help, and then constantly, evaluate not on everybody on your team, yourself included, right, are they right for the position at this current level of growth?
Right.
And those are hard conversations to have with yourself and with your team members.
Yeah, I mean, because then you can outgrow people, and they might have been in charge then, and they're not anymore. And I think at the, like for your example, we talked about like when you first started the podcast and purpose for it. You might be a phenomenal trainer, and you might have worked your tail off to open up 2-3 gyms, and you have the opportunity to grow, but you recognize that you're not capable of running a 5-store operation or a 10-store operation. You always hope that you have the wherewithal and the humility as a leader to take the step back and realize that what's best for the business is you taking a secondary seat or a tertiary seat and let others that are more capable and competent grow the business to what you ultimately want it to be. I think it's very, very hard. I don't think many people have the humility or the wherewithal to make those decisions. But it's something he's got to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. But that's the difference between, what good to great. So yeah. I agree with you 100%.
Great book.
Oh yeah, it is a great book. I'm going to do a shameless plug on my book. I took 20 of the best podcasts and wrote a book about it. And the thing I like about the book is exactly what you said. It has different levels. You have people who have, we have a couple of franchisees in there. And then we have a couple of multiple location owners, and then we have some single location owners.
Right.
And the thing I like about it is like a reference manual, because like you said, if you don't even have one location, you have no business trying to figure out what a person with 4 locations is doing, or a franchisee is doing. You need to focus on what that person with 1 location is doing, and what you need to have it be successful.
No, I think it's good. I would like to read your book. What's it called?
Masters in Fitness Business. When we get off, shoot me.
Famous plug. You didn't even include the title.
No, that's it. Masters in Fitness Business. But if you afterwards, shoot me your address and I'll send you a copy.
I'd love to read it. And I think that's my biggest, if you give a piece of advice, someone always tell people it's, no individual or no one thing, whether it's good to great, whether it's traction, the EOS system, or anything like that. Not one person. I don't think anyone should be uber dogmatic about. I think, you hear people all the time, they're trying to get a business, and obviously they're trying to better themselves, which is good on you. And they want to buy Tony Robbins, or they just want to buy Gary Vee or whoever, which are great people. I have the utmost respect. Again, I've taken a lot of their tidbits and applied them in the business. I think the biggest piece of advice is take nothing as a comprehensive read, but of every single person and every single tool or information out there, there's normally something you can apply to your own business or to your realm, and always challenge yourself to listen to different perspectives. And meaning that it doesn't have to be business. Some of the most impactful things that I've learned and implemented to grow where we are came from things I've heard outside of business and different, TED Talks or whatever it might be. And, I remember the other week I was listening to a monk on a TED Talk, and it was just so fascinating because, when you get wrapped around, you just listen to business stuff, but when you hear different perspectives and then apply them to the business realm, it can have positive and really great results.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, because everybody that I've had on the podcast that has been successful, all of them almost to the person has had some kind of coach or mentor. And when I talk to them about who are your biggest influences, they talk about, well, not necessarily where they are now, but where do they want to go? So, what's the next level that you want to achieve? And then once you figure that out, then you can go out and seek out mentors and coaches that have done that have achieved what you want to achieve. And then that's where they go. They don't go where they are, they're going to where they want to go. And I think that's super, super important. Yeah. And I also think it, like to your point, I think it's important to look outside the industry, because I know for myself, I've been in a mastermind in fitness, and it's been invaluable. Not only just great friends, but great advice, but it does become kind of incestuous, meaning that we trade the same ideas and kind of recirculate the same ideas, and they can get dated and cease to work, especially when it comes to Facebook marketing, because that changes so rapidly. So one of my biggest mentors, Rick Mayo, I think he does Rex roundtables, which is different industries. And I think he has told me personally how much he's learned from other industries, applications or strategies or tactics that he can kind of tweak to fit the fitness industry. And then it becomes something new for the fitness industry, but where it originally came from outside the fitness industry. So I think that's super, super important.
Well, even and I think and there's also no excuse nowadays, meaning everything is at the tip of your fingers via a phone. Sorry, the phone, and you can get this information. It's readily available, and you can listen to people. And for those because it can be hard to find a mentor. I mean, it's not. A lot of times, really, the mentors I've had in my life are more serendipitous, and I kind of understood the value they could bring and really work to the relationship. But not everyone has that opportunity. But luckily for things like YouTube and Google, there's plenty of opportunities, or even the podcast, like what you're doing right now, is opportunities for people out there that maybe there's a franchisor out there that's listening to this that says, hey, I want to get from 10 and maybe I want to get to 100. And maybe they plug into this and helps them out. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to learn that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think going outside the industry is critical in different components and breaking down the business. If you're trying to provide, I've done this before with our FAC or Franchise Advisor Council or whoever, if you're trying to provide the best customer service, for example, in the gym that you opened up or for us, you almost think about where do you think the best customer service exists? Meaning like, down here might be how you're treated at, Disney, for example, at a Hilton, at Chick-fil-A, whatever it is to where you feel like, man, every time you go there, the customer service is just top notch. And you almost break it down and then you can research with people, what do they do to provide that experience? And then you go ahead and analyze it and cross it over to what you're doing or what you're trying to do in this industry. But yeah, you can do all kinds of things. Marketing too. What's powerful, what's impactful in marketing on everything outside the industry? Okay, well, how can we apply that? How can we translate that into stretching as a lifestyle play or for fitness or for gym or anything of that nature? So I do think you always need to be challenging yourself with different perspectives, including in your own internal teams. And so I know it's kind of more of a long-winded answer than you probably wanted, but I think with teams and it's part of setting up the right culture and having the proper culture is not only does culture attest to better employees, better retention. We always kind of joke that culture is new currency, but also what it leads to more so is it provides an opportunity for healthy discourse, meaning that if everyone believes in the intent that you're trying to accomplish, everyone is going to stand up for what they think is right and what's best for the organization, however big or small that is. Now, it's your role as a leader to allow that to happen and not to punish or reprimand someone for speaking their mind on what they think is best for the business or the team as a whole. So I know I went kind of down a rabbit hole, but
yeah, no, I love it, and I love that concept because I think it's healthy, to your point, to have dissenting opinions. I don't think you want people on your team where it's one homogenous thought.
Done in a respectful way. I always like to caveat that, like done in a respectful, not calling stuff like that, but here's what I think, and I disagree with. I mean, listen, my directors and even C-level, I mean, they'll say, listen, I disagree, and I'll say, okay, why? And we'll have a conversation about it, and normally come to an agreement. But I think. But it goes back to, it's kind of full circle, it goes back to a lot of the egos that leaders possess. I mean, they're scared of someone challenging their opinion. And more importantly, they're scared to be right. Or say, I don't know about something.
Exactly.
God forbid, some of us aren't all knowing.
Right. Yeah. I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer, but let me find out for you. And then the other thing, like you said, about having that dissenting opinion. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. I still have a little pump head left over, and I know your wife's a cardiothoracic surgeon, so you understand. But what you were saying about
healthy discourse, or
because that's what it was. Because I know for me, in my current role in my training studio, I have very little interaction with our clients. I mean, I may say hi, but I'm not on the floor training them. I'm not like, talking with them back and forth. So my trainers are the front line. Yeah. So they're going to have more insight than me on what we may need for, client services or whatever, because they're on the front lines dealing with our clients all the time. So for me not to listen to their input is just, foolish. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to step back and trust others. And I think that's the biggest challenge for those making the step from doer to leader. Meaning, like, even leaders are all doing to some extent, but there is power in delegation and proper delegation. There is power in proper leadership. But I think the most frustrating aspect for new leaders that I've observed and through my own experience is, you're so used to being able to have your fingers on everything to where you can move the needle by yourself and you're the one doing it and you can push that. It's much more challenging when you have to go through one level of individuals to make it and have a direct impact on performance, let alone go through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 levels to then have a direct impact on performance. But if you are looking to even own your own business, whether it's 1 studio or 10 studios, you need to be able to do that. You need to trust those around you.
Absolutely. And build a trustworthy team.
Yep.
And create trust in that team too, because they need to trust you as well.
When you fail too.
Right, exactly.
And so you always have to, and I always say we are our biggest critics, and we are the judge and the jury internally. There's no outside source that could be as critical to us as we are of each other, meaning that, hey, listen, when you mess up, that's our big thing. When you don't know, say you don't know. And when you mess up, just own it.
Yeah.
Say no, just don't make the same mistake over and over again. But as a leader, that takes me saying, hey guys, my bad on that one. It wasn't the right decision, or hey, I should have gone this way. And I think like just that one little thing is so impactful and so powerful to so many teams. But it takes one of the most critical components of leadership in my mind, which is humility.
Yep. But when you admit your mistakes, it gives your team permission to admit theirs.
Yes.
Without fear of reprisal. And then that's where that culture starts to develop that you want. Yeah, 100%. So I'm a big believer in single-mindedness of purpose. So I understand the stretch zone, but my question to you is, why just stretch? Why not, add anything else onto it, like strength training, cardio, or anything like that?
Because stretching itself and stretch zone is really, it's a lifestyle product. It's a lifestyle service. It's supposed to be in conjunction with any of those items. And because it's not just fitness, and really it goes back to being able to live your life easier and live your life better, whatever that might be, is that it's going to help and it's going to support and it's going to add value to whatever you're doing in life. Whether it's just getting back to activity, whether it's a rigorous strength or training program, whether it's just playing golf, which we have a lot in South Florida, or something as simple as, hey, I just want to be able to play with my grandkids longer without feeling lower back pain. And so because it is an ultimate a wellness and lifestyle product, there is no need to add something internally, because it's just going to add value to whatever you're doing in life. Got
it. I like that answer. All right. Well, Tony, this has been great. I appreciate you taking the time and your patience. I always end with 3 questions, and it's my favorite part of the show because we get to peek behind the curtain of who is Tony. So they're not really gotcha questions, but we get some of the best answers. So my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you didn't think you were going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from it that propelled you to greater success down the road.
Oh God, there's so many. There's micro failures and there's macro failures, and I think before stretching, I used to run operations for a timber company. That was the first thing I had. It was a startup timber company out of Birmingham, Alabama. So it started with a pretty big size, around 100 trucks, 8 crews. That's where I learned a ton, and that really prepared me for stretch zone, because only being 28, believe it or not, today. Then I was, fresh out of school, had an opportunity to get severely underpaid, severely overworked, but the pitch was I was going to learn a lot, and I did, and I was very grateful for the CFO that brought me on. I remember one time we had to, I never understood the value of understanding the data and knowing your numbers, and I underestimated something in the budget by about $85,000, and it was something where it didn't get found out until like that day. I mean, mind you, this is my first gig out of college, and just that lesson of like, and what it was it was tags. So you need to renew tags, and with timber, there's all different levels of tags. It's not just like the tag you put in the back of your plate. There's IFTA tags, there's fuel tax, there's all this other kind of stuff. You only get it one time a year. Literally, you can't operate without it. So it's not an optional, like, hey, I wanted to get, this, and I can't get it now. It was like, hey, this is critical to the operation. And, I remember realizing it. Like the second I realized it, I was like, I wanted to throw up. And I remember going to the CFO saying, hey, remember what I thought it was? It's actually X. And I thought I was done for. And the CFO just, I took my lashings, and then, again, admit when you mess up. That's when I learned when I was really young. My dad always beat into me, was just, admit when you're wrong, admit when you don't know. And she just said, this is why you always need to know your numbers and you know your data. And to that day, and what everyone knows around me is data and numbers are either accurate or they're inaccurate. There is no, that number's off, but generally it's pretty much there. That doesn't fly on our team, and everyone knows that, because if you don't know your data, you don't know the business.
Right.
And then you apply that to operations and everything. Here's my whole take on any business for those that are trying to start their own thing: is everything needs to be quantifiable. And guess what? If it's not, you need to find a way to make it quantifiable to where it actually gives you live feedback on what's going on in the performance. Because you make decisions based on data. You don't make decisions based on your emotion or your gut or anything like that, especially operational decisions. And so I do remember that. That's probably the one failure that resonates with me the most.
Yeah. We all remember that one. And I agree with you on the data, because otherwise you don't know your business.
Correct.
Like say, if you don't know if you have a marketing problem or a retention problem or a pricing problem, if you don't have the data. I mean, and it can be something.
Some people don't even know their profit margin. It's like, huh?
Right. Yeah. Or because I brought on Ivan, who is kind of my part-time CFO, and he jumped in and did some analysis and found out that our most popular membership was losing us money. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that before because I didn't have the data. The other thing, the simple thing, it's the simplest data that I can recommend for any fitness business owners is, how many leads are you generating a month? And from those leads, how many appointments are you booking? What's your show up rate? And then of the people that show up, what's your conversion rate? And that can tell you whether your business is growing or shrinking,
Yep. And I think it's, you always got to be mindful of direct versus indirect impacts on revenue. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people focus on the indirect impacts on revenue because they're often easier and sometimes easier to correct, meaning that, revenue cures all, right? Sales cures all. And it's one of those things where, especially with smaller, whether a franchisee is one store or someone's opening a business, they have one location, it's, they're trying to process things out. And it goes back to the whole thing of like, hey, trying to be a 20 location organization, they have one store. They're like, well, we need processes behind this and this and this and this. And it's like, no, you need to make money first. You need to be successful. So, hey, your Excel spreadsheets and all this are fine and dandy, but if you can't find a way to convert those leads and convert them into sales, you're in a problem. Excel sheets mean nothing.
Yeah. And then to your point, like maybe your sales are great, but if your retention's crap, if you're bleeding people out the back door, then it's like bailing water out of a boat with a hole in it. So I agree with you. My next question is, in your time in the fitness industry, what is the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming? And usually I make COVID exempt, but somebody told me, we're going to talk about COVID because that was kind of a big watershed moment for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think the most challenging, COVID was, actually it was very helpful to the business as a whole in the long run, because it proved out the resiliency of our model, our business model. We started the first retail storefront in 2016, and a question we'd always get from franchisees, sitting at the table 3 years ago before purchasing, is they say, hey, yeah, you guys have incredible growth. Top franchisees, very successful, no failures, but how do you anticipate the model reacting when there's a drawback, a recession, a dip? Because everyone knew that something was going to come. Nobody knew it would be to the magnitude or the catalyst of something like COVID. And so back then, we always used to be, speculation, and always used to be, hey, we think it would respond like this, or we think it would respond like that. And so when COVID first happened, I mean, God, I could do a whole hour on just stories from COVID, because being in 26 different states, now 30, the biggest challenges weren't just the unit level economics, it's more so from a brand perspective of protecting the brand, because franchisees of course want to stay open and support their business, but also how do you do it in a mindful way that doesn't push away consumers in other markets. And the problem is no market was in agreement, meaning no jurisdiction or state or county or city, whatever you want to call it, was in agreement on how to handle COVID. And the big challenge for us, and the big aspect is understanding that, I always joke and say the best thing about social media is that you can find, you can get to anyone, anywhere in the world with a click of a button. And the worst thing about social media is that you can find or get to anyone or anywhere in the world with a click of a button. And so with that, the brand can be interpreted in much different ways, even though that locale is just abiding by their local jurisdiction, whether it's mask policies, or COVID protocols as a whole. So it definitely is something where that was a challenge. And I remember when it first happened, we would think, when you study business, so like you have, or different business stories, a moment like COVID is almost like a wildfire in the ecosystem with regards to business. And what it does is those that are prepared for it, those that are structured and ready for it, they can go ahead and they can outlast the storm. And if anything, it shakes out the people that maybe weren't focused the right way or didn't really have a great business structure, but we're just thriving off of an uptick in a good economy. And so you kind of know that an event like COVID will either sink you or will propel you into the stratosphere, which it kind of has for us, because what franchisees found is like, no, the model is resilient. There is a way to get out of the year and everyone being the black. And we returned to pre-COVID levels pretty much by October, and there was really a V-shaped recovery. And so obviously challenging on so many aspects. And I think for any business owner, whether it's COVID or something else, you just got to be agile. You got to be able to adjust very quickly and to expect the unexpected. And also from a mental perspective is, in ops as a whole, you got to expect wrenches to come at you. And it's, the running joke is it's the acceptance that, I'm big on plan your work your plan, but it's also walking into the week, here we sit on Monday, right? And like, for example, technical difficulties. Did you plan on that happening? But you got to work with it. And it's kind of like you walk into every single week knowing that, hey, nothing is going to go exactly to plan. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know what the magnitude of it is going to be, but it's not going to go to plan. And guess what? That's all right. And you move and you adjust. And COVID was really a way to exemplify that and also challenge our team and challenge the leaders within the organization. So I think to date that by far is the biggest challenge. And, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure. And I think one of my fears as a studio owner coming out of COVID, during COVID, like online and video fitness just skyrocketed. And coming out of COVID, I didn't know where that was going to land. I knew it was going to pull back a little bit, but I didn't know where it was going to land. And what has seemed to happen is that people are flocking back to in-person services because they miss that, because there's something that, you just can't translate on video that comes across when you're doing it in person, for sure. Yeah. And then my last question for you is, where do you go for your professional and personal development?
Everywhere. I wasn't lying when I said, on both sides.
Yeah. What you don't get to be a 28-year-old CEO without doing some kind of development.
Honestly, it's a lot of deep diving, and it's a lot of, I say self-awareness, or I beat that drum, but it's true. And it's taking, no one knows me better than me. But I'm also very open, and if there's a chink in the armor, if there's a weakness, I'm aware of it. I'm going to work hard to make it stronger, and obviously enhance myself. And with regards to personal and professional, I'm a big believer that whatever you're doing in professional life, do what you love to do. If you don't love it, don't do it. Life's way too short. And so those lines for me personally are a little bit blurred in the sense of you should always be a student regardless. And with that comes your own personal development. And, so my MO is I don't wake up at 4:30 most days. I'm not going to claim all days because my wife would call me out in a heartbeat. And so I wake up most days at 4:30 and I go work out in the morning, and I've had to adjust that. Obviously, we have a newborn son in our life, and super blessed.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so you got to make time to take care of yourself. I'm a big believer in healthy body, healthy mind. But it's funny because, and I'm curious to hear from you, is working out always used to be about performance, aesthetics, whatever it is, and truly what working out has turned in for me has been, that is really almost on a meditative time of where I can learn things. And the reason why I like doing it so early is because it's one of the few times my phone's not going off because no one else is awake. No other sane person's probably awake. And so when I get the development is I literally, while working out, that's when I listen to podcasts, listen to your podcast beforehand. I'll listen to TED Talks. I'll listen to kind of whatever the rabbit hole is. And maybe it's a topic I've already been thinking about, whether it's leadership development, whether it's marketing, whether it's whatever. And again, you have the tool with you, being a phone is where you can take the time, and even audiobooks. That there really is no excuse to constantly challenge yourself to learn and grow. And really what I try to do is dedicate an hour a day to, listening to something like that. It's going to help either personal or professional development. And I think that's what's been really fruitful for me because, and again, I'll take a tidbit from anything. And if anything, as business owners, you don't understand, in my personal opinion, the power of the subconscious thought. Meaning that you can hear something, and with a lot of regards, that by the time you've had that light bulb moment on any given item, believe it or not, you've probably been thinking about it at a subconscious level in different facets for a pretty long time. And so when you challenge yourself to learn and grow, you might hear something that might not resonate at a conscious level, but it might add value to something that you're thinking about with the business. So I think that's huge in a lot of regards. And that time in the morning for me, I got to be disciplined about it because again, it gives you that space to have that thought and to think about these items. Because during the day, as you know, it's an ops or running any business, you turn into a firefighter. Really quick, and there is no free time to just pontificate and think about vision or anything of that nature. And you really need to make time for it. So for me, that's been very impactful, and also understanding that there's multiple ways to be successful. It's not just one way. Not one person's always right. There's a lot of people that have walked the road and laid the path for you, and you just got to take whatever you can from it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that your body is the vessel for not only your mind but your soul, right? So if your body's not in shape, then your mind's not. If your body's not in top shape, how can your mind be in top shape? How can it be operating at its optimal level? So I agree with you. And, to your point, my studio opens up at 5:30 a.m.
Yeah.
And, much to the chagrin of my trainers, but it's our most popular time, and it's, CEOs, attorneys, doctors, and they want to get in and they want to get it out of the way before the day takes.
The morning crew is the same crew.
Yeah, because they want to get it done before the day takes them hostage, because they know they're not going to be able to, break for lunch and go work out. It just won't happen. Even if you do take the time, you're not focusing on the workout. And same thing in the evening, you're exhausted. You just want to get home and see your family. So yeah, I totally get the AM workouts. Well, Tony, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. So where can people go to find more information about Stretch Zone, all of that good stuff?
So for Stretch Zone, it's, go visit the website, stretchzone.com. The one thing I always challenge everyone when I do an interview or they see them is, don't take my word for how impactful the service can be. Try it out for yourself. that's why we offer the first stretch free nationwide, any location. So go on the website and type in to find a location nearest you, and then go ahead and sign up for one of those free stretches, and really see the difference that it'll make, right when you get off that table from that first stretch. For me personally, LinkedIn's good. Believe it or not, I do not have a Facebook, so don't try me there.
Good for you.
There's many reasons, but LinkedIn's normally good, and I try to be super responsive to any kind of requests or questions or anything like that, because I do believe in, one of the biggest things is help others get to where they want to be, and in turn get to where you want to be. And so if anyone ever has a question, including yourself, please never hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And those links will be in the show notes. Just go to trainergym.net, click on this episode of the podcast, and the links to contact Tony, find out more about Stretch Zone. If you're interested in opening up a franchise, all of their information will be right there. Tony, again, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. And I love to have the reserve the right to have you back on. This has been great.
I love conversations like this. And like I said, we could spend probably hours on any one of those given topics. So you tell me when you'd like to have me back on. I'm here.
Great, man. All right. Well, then I'll reach out, and then be sure to send me your address, and I'll send you that book. And then have a good rest of your day, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Jim.
All right. Take care.